When it comes to the twin flame journey, I am no stranger to all the turbulence that we experience, all the highs and the lows, the challenges that we face within our own personal journey and within our connection. And which is why I am so passionate about serving and helping feminines who are on the twin flame path. And today I want to talk about a common pattern, a cycle that I see so many feminines fall into. And I myself fell into this pattern for a really long time. It was actually something that I was talking to a dear friend with today about. And I want to talk about this part of us as feminines that feel like we need to love our twin flame more or to love them harder, right? Because if you think about your patterns in your relationships, there's common themes that keep showing up from relationship to relationship to relationship. Because when you take a step back and you begin to become a witness of your experiences, you can identify the patterns a little bit easier. And when you start to realize that you are the common denominator in all of your relationships, you'll begin to see the same themes playing out. And so, if you are someone who is on the twin flame journey and is a feminine and feel like you have been loving your twin flame more, feeling like you need to love them more or love them harder, then this video is for you. And for those of you that are new here, I want to welcome you. My name is Melissa, and this is the Sacredness Within You. I like to think of myself as a sacred feminine alchemist. I'm here to help those that are feminines on the journey be able to take the information that I'm sharing with you, the wisdom and the knowledge that I've learned on my path, and help you alchemize your personal journey and coming into a state of inner union. And if that is resonating with you and your body is saying yes, then make sure you click and subscribe, because I'm going to try to do my best moving forward to create more consistent content on here. And if you're not following me on TikTok, make sure you do that as well. If you can click on the link in my description box to be able to follow me there. So I want to talk about some like misconceptions that a lot of feminines fall trap into. And I am one of those that fell into this trap because a lot of the information that is out there will tell us that we need to think of our twin flame journey as a path to unconditional love, to devotion, and enduring more. And those are some key components to it, right? Because here on this plane, as twin flames, we're here to anchor in the codes of unconditional love. And we're here to reintroduce that to society by first unconditionally loving ourselves. It's easy to at times to unconditionally love our twin flame, right? But it's harder to unconditionally love people that have betrayed us, that have hurt us. But that's when you start to realize that those people that you've experienced those things with have helped create who you are today. And when you can do that, things get a little bit easier. And yes, this journey is about the feminine devoting to herself, right? Coming back to herself. And yes, it feels like we have to endure a lot, right? It feels like a roller coaster ride. It feels like we're pushed to our limits. And it feels like every experience that we're experiencing in life is expanding us and opening us even more. But the truth of the reality is this journey is an invitation to various parts of your life. It's an invitation to your looking at the different ways you are consciously or unconsciously embodying poverty consciousness, where you are more in your masculine energy versus your feminine energy. It's an initiation to helping you rise into the feminine you are meant to be in this lifetime. But one of the areas that a lot of us feminines have a hard time being initiated into is boundaries. Initiating ourselves into having boundaries for ourselves. A lot of times, many people will start with putting boundaries on someone else. And the reality is you have to be able to put boundaries on yourself. saying, I am no longer willing to show up as this person. I am no longer willing to tolerate this type of behavior in my life, even if it's from my twin flame. This journey will pull you into initiating you into self-trust, trusting yourself more, trusting in God, trusting in the universe, trusting in that part of you that says, this is the way, that soft little whisper, that voice that says, not this way. Or that voice that says, hey, you need to start doing this versus this. And the more that you can trust in that, the more that you can act on those little things where that voice says, go right instead of going left on your way to work. Or, hey, you should do this before you do this. The more that you can trust that voice is your GPS for your unique path as a twin flame. But most importantly, probably the area that I struggled in the most is this is initiation to your energetic sovereignty, where you are not meant to be enmeshed and intertwined in the ways that we are with our twin flames. Mentally, emotionally, physically, and even energetically. And I know some of you are going to drop in the comments and say, but yeah, there are twin flame, they're us in another body. Yes, that is true. However, it doesn't mean that we need to be constantly inundated by their emotions, inundated by their energies. We have to be able to become energetically sovereign on our own. So the feminine is energetically sovereign on her own, and the masculine is energetically sovereign on his own. And together they come together as two sovereign beings. And that's what sacred union is about. And it's not about being completely healed or whole. It's about navigating through the challenges that are preventing you, the feminine who is watching this video, from being in inner union. Because many of you are trying to put the cart before the horse, which I'm very, very familiar with in every area of my life. I've always done that. But you have to keep the cart behind the horse, because some of you are trying to bypass inner union and go straight into what you think is union. But let's really call it what it is. It's a relationship. And I'm a firm believer that twin flames are not meant to be friends, and they are not meant to be in a relationship. They're meant to be in a sacred divine union, which is very different than a relationship. And so today I really want to talk about some of the things that we experience as twin flames, that we move through on this path. Because many feminines, when they awaken to this twin flame path, they may think, like, if I look perfect enough, if I do more of this, if I show up in this way, if I, show him I'm supporting him more, or whatever your fill in the blank is, you think he'll choose you more. But the reality is, there's no amount of loving him more that he'll actually choose you. Because some of you are there at their beck and call whenever they text you, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. You are there for them. And that is not what the divine feminine does, because she's not waiting around for somebody to text her or call her. She's not trying to love another person more than herself. She's choosing herself. She's setting sacred boundaries with herself, which then radiate out into her reality. And so I want you to think about, what is it that you think that if you did more of something, that your twin flame will choose you? And I want you to think about that. I want you to feel into that and start thinking about, like, where is that pattern from? Who did you learn that from? And how did it play out in other relationships that you had? So one of the things that I see a lot within my DMs, within the clients that I work with, within my comments on my TikTok post, is that when we first awaken to this journey, right? It's like our world gets turned upside down. We finally have found this love, this person who we knew that we were meant to be with. And it calls us to expand, right? And it's expanding in more ways than we can even realize at that time. It's expanding our capacity to hold love. It's expanding our capacity to receive love. It's expanding our capacity to unconditionally love ourselves. It's expanding our capacity to hold ourselves without collapsing, right? It's expanding our ability to be abundant. It's expanding our ability to be the sacred feminine we're meant to be, the leaders that we're meant to be, that pulls us in every single direction. And sometimes it feels like we're being pulled in multiple directions at one time because this journey is sacred. It's devotional. It's not just your everyday run-of-the-mill relationship. It's very different than a soulmate relationship because this journey is going to show you everything that you knew love could be, but yet never experience it until now. And the love that you've always known, I knew since I was a little girl, since I was 6, that there was a love out there that when I met this person, I will never have experienced it with anyone else. And I spent 39 years of my life looking for that love. Every time I would encounter somebody, I'd be like, nope, that's not him. And then when I found that love showed me that the love that I thought I was experiencing in life wasn't love. And I often tell people, I'm like, I didn't know what love was until I met my twin flame. I didn't know love could be like a whole body, physical, energetic experience. And I realized I was like loving people from my mind because I was so shut down, so afraid to truly love. And common patterns that I see in feminines is availability to us, being available all the time, dropping whatever you're doing for them, answering their calls right away, texting them, or if they want to meet up, you're like, yeah, when do you want to meet up? Oh, in 20 minutes. Okay, yeah, and you drop everything, right? That's not love. So we confuse being available for them as love. We confuse forgiveness with strength, endurance with as loyalty, right? Like how many of you are enduring so much in this relationship and this connection, and you think it's showing your twin flame that you're loyal to them. And when you take a step back and look at these patterns, you realize that these are patterns you grew up with. You grew up with seeing in your parents, right? Probably your grandparents. You've probably seen these same patterns within your friendship circle. And these are things that we've learned through our attachment style. And on top of it, as feminines, especially women that are feminines, right? Like we've been told like we've been conditioned to believe that we have to put everyone else's needs before ours. Like we come last. When the reality is you are the most important person in your body, right? Not in your body, in your life, right? You are the most important person in your life. And if you haven't started exploring your attachment style and how it impacts your relationships, both romantic and platonic relationships, how it impacts your work environment, I encourage you to do that first before you dive into doing anything related to your twin flame journey. Because if you're not navigating this this journey from a more secure attachment style, you're going to keep spinning your wheels and you're going to keep looping through the same things and you're going to become frustrated. And one of the things, and this is not sponsored at all, one of the things that I did was thankfully the universe brought this YouTube channel to me, and it's called the Personal Development School. This woman out of Canada, she runs a personal development school, and it's incredible. She talks about attachment styles a lot on her YouTube channel, but I also went to her website. I'll see if I can link the website down below in my description box where you can take her quiz that she has if it's still available, where you can learn like what kind of attachment style are you? And then you can start diving into understanding yourself and why you created this type of attachment style. And if you haven't done that, please do yourself a favor and start exploring that part because it will unravel a lot of things for you and it will allow you to see the patterns that you keep playing out and how you're chasing and grasping for love. And by the way, how you treat love is exactly the same way you treat money. Just a little side note. So the other thing I see too often when it comes to the twin flame connection and the feminines wanting to love their twin flame more is that she often overrides her body, meaning she's ignoring the discomfort about something that's happening between her and her twin flame. She may be unwilling to do the inner work because she's focused more on the masculine than herself. And I want you feminines to be really honest with yourself. How do I want to phrase this? What percentage of your time are you focused on your twin flame's journey? What he or she might be doing, thinking, are they learning their lessons? Thinking about like, how can you teach them to learn the things that they need to learn? How many of you are trying to be responsible for your twin flame's healing, your twin flame learning what they need to learn? Be honest. And how much of your content is focused on what the masculine is doing versus focusing on content that can help support you in your growth? Because I didn't do this on purpose, but I was just at the beginning of January, I started creating some really like beautiful transmissions on TikTok. And I was just creating these based on the things that were coming to surface and also things that I was seeing in my reality. Because I have a lot of people that are in my personal reality. I feel like any person that I have a really great connection with is on the twin flame path. And so through these conversations that I have, it helps inspire me to share some content. And I had created a post about something about rejecting the masculine. My post, anytime it has anything to do with the masculine, thousands upon thousands of views. When it comes to things about the feminine, less than 1,000 views. And I get it, right? Like I get it because some of you, your nervous systems are still wired to look for that content because that's what feels safe. That's what feels normal for you, right? But when you start diving into your nervous system work and start regulating your nervous system, you start you don't crave that kind of content anymore. And I know some of you just aren't there yet, and that's okay. But it's something just to bring to the forefront of your mind is to look at how much of your content, how much of your time is focused on the masculine. And the other thing too that happens is while she's doing this, a lot of feminines don't realize that the patterns that she's playing out with her twin flame are the exact same patterns that she would play out in every single relationship. So I want to give a personal example. So one of the things that I really struggled with for a really long time was abandonment. And my abandonment ran deep within me, within my lineage, and within my soul's experience. So this was one of my core things that I knew I had to face. I had to love that part of me. I had to heal that part of me. I knew that this was one of the things that I would have to do for a union, but also too if I wanted to experience anything else in life, like being a mother. I knew my whole life I didn't want to pass that on to my children because I didn't want my children to ever feel that way. So I want you to think about something like that. Like what is some of those major themes that you keep coming up within your relationships, and start unraveling, start doing the inner work to undo those things. Because your twin flame is not going to allow you to continue to play out those patterns. They might put up a wall, they might shut down, they might not answer you, they might even set a boundary with you. But begin exploring those things and start looking at what kind of patterns do you keep playing out over and over in your relationships. Because when I started doing that, I like made leaps and bounds within my own personal journey and within my connection. But the biggest thing that I would do, because I had this fear of abandonment, was I would abandon myself in my relationship. So for example, if I had a goal, like I remember I was dating somebody and I had this goal within my work. I used to be a personal trainer, and I was at the beginning stages of my job there. And I still had a lot to learn, and I really wanted to build a really great business. And I would drop everything for this person that I was dating. And we were just dating. We weren't even boyfriend or girlfriend. And I would drop whatever it was, what it was that I was doing, and I would make him a priority. That came with I allowed that connection to come between myself and my health goals, between myself and my personal goals and in my work environment. And really the list went on. It even impacted me in terms of like my training for like half marathons and marathons. And so for me, I would abandon myself. I'd abandon my goals, my passions, and my desires, the things that I loved and that I liked. And I would do whatever he wanted to do, right? And I would like be excited about his goals, support him and push him. His likes became my likes. I stopped liking the things that I was liking, and everything was geared towards him. And I wanted to give you that example because that's what I see in a lot of feminines and a lot of relationships with when it comes to women. Like we abandon ourselves, we abandon our goals all for the name of love. And never should we be abandoning ourselves in that way for love. So the second way the feminine overrides her body is she explains, she will explain away every single red flag. Like you'll see the red flag, but you'll have a reasoning behind it. And I was like, even like talking to one of my friends one day, and there was this big thing between the two of them. And this big thing, which was like their major thing, right? Because we all have our major, like, quote unquote, issue that comes between us and our twin flame. And that's the big rock that we have to unfold, right? And unravel. That, big red flag was always blinking bright red. And I mean, multiple red flags were coming out of this. And she would say, yeah, but he's doing this, and then he's doing this, and this is great. I've seen this change in him. And I would say, yeah, but what about this over here? Yeah, that's still not happening, but it's going to. And eventually that red flag became so red and so big that it created a lot of pain and suffering in their connection. And that's why it's so important to see the red flags, listen to them, do not make excuses, and start making different choices. Start pivoting your journey to make sure that you're not continuing to allow those red flags to be there and just kind of be like, oh, well, that's just part of it. I know he's my twin flame, so I have to be able to just endure this. No, just because they're your twin flame doesn't mean that they get to walk all over you. Doesn't mean that you tolerate the red flags. Because the reality is, feminines, if you were to take off the label twin flame, be really honest with yourself. What are you in your twin flame? Me and my twin flame, we would be ex-boyfriend and ex-girlfriend. That is it. And that's a reality. So why does an ex-boyfriend get to do certain things? He doesn't. In my reality, he doesn't. I wouldn't allow that from my twin flame. I wouldn't tolerate it from any other ex either. The other thing too is many of you, myself included, I did this for a really long time, are wearing what I call rose-colored glasses. You start to see things from this lens of like, oh, everything is great. Everything is, this is all happening for us. In a way, wearing rose-colored glasses is like a form of spiritual bypassing. It's a form of false positivity of looking at it like, oh, it's not that bad. Or, this is just happening for us, and stuff. But I want you to take those rose-colored glasses off and really see what your connection is like. Be really honest with yourself. Is it a one-side love? Is it unrequited love where your world revolves around them, but their world doesn't revolve around you? Be really honest with yourself, because this is the stuff that many feminines don't want to see because of the label, because they're our twin flame. So begin exploring those types of things. Where are you wearing rose-colored glasses and think everything is all, I don't know why this wants to come up, a hunky-dory? Or where is it that you're making excuses for all the red flags that he has? And the other thing I see what feminines do with overriding their body is she stays open past her capacity. Nowhere, anywhere is it written that you have to be open all the time, 100% of the time. You can't, because there's parts of you that need to come back to you, right? Like you have to come back to you at the end of the day. You're not supposed to be available for everyone and everything. And many of you are so open to your twin flame, hoping that if you were more available for him, he's going to choose you. Spoiler alert, he won't. Because your ability to be open is not what makes you magnetic. And your masculine, he'll get to a point in his journey where he won't be attracted to that anymore, because he wants to be attracted to somebody who is magnetic, who is in her authenticity, who is showing up in her fullness and owning every single part of her. And I want to know which parts of this is really resonating with you. To drop it in the comments and to let me know what's resonating with you. Because here's the thing I want you to know, that if everything I said just now is speaking to, and you're like, oh my God, this sounds like me. Like, is she in my world? Can she see me and what I'm doing every day? I want you to know that you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not that you're doing this journey incorrectly, but this is how the journey often begins. And when you can take that step back and start looking through the lens of self-awareness, that's when things begin to shift. And when you become aware of things, you cannot unsee it. So which then means you have to take the steps to start unlearning it, unraveling the things, start healing those parts of you, start integrating what it is that you learn. Integration is one thing that a lot of people miss out on and don't understand why their journey doesn't change. But this is where you can begin to realize that nothing will change in your external reality until your inner world starts changing. Because when your inner world starts changing, you will stop allowing the same patterns to repeat. Whether that's your pattern in relationship with money, or with your twin flame, or with your parents, or with your child, whatever that might be, right? Because you can't wait for the masculine to be the one that's willing to take the leap of faith and do the change first, because chances are they don't have it in them. And sometimes a feminine has to be the one that starts to set that boundary. That's the one that ends the cycle, that ends the pattern. I want you to think about the major pattern that's playing out in your connection right now. And if we begin with that, what boundary do you need to set with yourself? So I want to talk about the next thing that usually happens in our path. Is the next part is like the collapse. And this collapse can show up in many, many ways. not only are things collapsing within your twin flame dynamic, they're also collapsing in your external reality, right? Like you might be losing friends, you might be losing a job, you might be losing your house, you might be losing something, right? Because whatever it is that you have built is no longer in alignment with you. And it's no longer resonating with the version of you that you are becoming. And whatever is in the way eventually has to fall away. But in our connection, when things start to collapse, it shows up in our body in certain ways. So it can look like exhaustion and fatigue because we're giving and giving and giving, right? We're constantly available. So that becomes exhausting. We're so tired. And then plus many of you, your plates are so full of, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. When you need to start taking some of those things off of your plate and making you a priority, your inner world, now focusing on the external world. So many of you are caught up in changing the external world. Like, I have to look prettier, I have to be fitter, I have to do this in the external world. But nothing's going to change in the external world until you change internally. Sometimes this collapsing can show up as resentment, anger, frustration. And I know I've been there with my twin. I've been angry at him at times and so frustrated with him. And I've resented him for things. But the reality is I only felt those things because of what it is that I did or did not do. It can show up as also as anxiety and confusion, right? Like how many of you get so confused at times? A lot of times our confusion is because we're not in tune to our body. We're navigating this through the mind, and the mind fears your twin flame and God more than anything. And so, of course, it's not going to allow you to get too close to your twin flame or to get things to be too good in your life because that becomes dangerous, right? And your ego is here to protect you. And the other thing, too, that I wish I did this earlier on my journey, but I can't change my journey, right? And for those of you that are, excuse me, new to my work and new to me, is that my soul loves, and I mean loves to take the long way wherever it is that I'm going. It's because it's on that path. I learn what works and what doesn't work because I view things as an experiment. And it's through the learnings that I learn on that path that I say this works and this doesn't work. And I start applying these things to my life and I start teaching you all about this. And no matter where it is on your journey right now, whether you're in the very beginning stages of your journey or you've been on this journey for a while like me, if you haven't started diving into nervous system work, I encourage you to start opening that portal because the nervous system and the body is what will stop from good things happening in your life, will prevent you from being in union with yourself, with your twin flame. It will prevent you from receiving because your body might not feel safe. It has these patterns stuck within your nervous system and in your energy field that prevent you from moving forward. So there's no amount of mind thinking or external work that you can do to outrun the things that are going on the inside. Because if your body is saying no, even though that your mind is saying yes, your body will override your mind every single time because the heart and the body and your nervous system don't have the capacity for love if it doesn't feel safe. Because true, sacred, divine experience is very different than anything any of us have ever experienced. And that threatens our body. It threatens our mind. It threatens our nervous system. Because we're not here to love through the mind. We're here to love through our soul, love through our body. And that includes our nervous system. And so I want to take a brief moment to talk about separation. because I like to think of this as a sacred pause, the sacred becoming of the feminine and the masculine. And one of the things that I find more glory in than anything in the world is watching the unfolding of so many feminines rising, whether they're on the twin flame journey or not, along with seeing so many masculines rising right now. And I'm sorry, but that kind of gets me more excited than the feminines rising, because let's face it, as feminines have been doing this work for a while, where the masculines are starting to finally come up and start doing this work. And this is when the massive shifts are going to happen, right? Because when the masculine is there to hold the feminine, and we have to do this within ourselves, right? The feminine can really flourish and really open up and grow. And separation, for those of us that are on the twin flame journey, is that time for the feminine. Because oftentimes, what I see during separation is a lot of feminines blaming the masculine. And I was there, I was guilty of it. He's not doing this, he's not listening to me, he's not doing this, his work, like the list would go on, right? But here's the reality is he's doing the work that he's meant to do. He's focused on the 3D, which is exactly what the masculine should be doing. You as a feminine are focused on the internal world. And separation is that sacred part of the journey that many feminines try to bypass. They resist going into separation. They're wanting to remain friends or try to make a relationship work over and over again when it's not meant to work. So stop trying to force something, try to make it work, right? Because that is also a pattern within itself, within your relationship dynamics. And start allowing this space for your growth, allowing this space for you to really thrive and rise up into the feminine you are meant to be. Because if you're not doing the inner work, sacred union is not going to happen. But one of the biggest things that I see, and this is the big shift that I see within the feminines, is when you start breaking the pattern of no longer self-abandoning yourself, you then start shifting things within you. There's no amount of things that you can do in your external reality that are going to make things happen, because you have to be able to embody your feminine essence, embody inner union. And that comes from every cell, every fiber of your being, including your nervous system, embodying that state of consciousness. And the one thing that I want to mention is that the love that you have for your twin flame, it's not fake, even if it was coming from an attachment style, right? But the way that you have been loving your twin flame, it's not sustainable. And you have a track record that proves it, because every relationship up until meeting your twin flame was not sustainable. So one of the things I often talk about in my coaching sessions and what I see within the feminines, and this is absolutely critical in every area of our life. And I was actually just reading a book, and the book is called Dancing with the Flames, and it talks about the dark feminine and expansion of consciousness. And it's really a great read, and it helps you understand like the psyche of the masculine and how the feminine plays a role in that, and the role that she plays, but also too how is because of our conditioning and the upbringing of things. But they talk about this pendulum, the swinging of the pendulum. And I see this in every area of my life. And I see this in so many feminines. And they think, well, I used to be this way, and then I went this way, and now I don't know what to do. Right. And so when you think about a pendulum, it goes back and forth, right? And a lot of times it swings back and forth to an extreme. And eventually, when it stops going back and forth to those extremes, it comes back to the center. And that's what our twin flame journey is helping us do. So when you think about love, love is over here on this side where it's about a self-abandonment, giving it all that you can, doing whatever you can to make it work, right? And you're loving from your attachment. And then you come to this other side where you're like, I want nothing to do with him. Like, so many red flags. I can't believe I ever loved him. To like kind of shutting down your masculine armor goes up. Then you come back to the middle, right? Where you start to understand what love is really about, what the sacred union is really about. And this happens with money. It happens with your health and wellness. I mean, like health and wellness, I can relate to in so many ways because when I was a personal trainer on this side of the journey, before my awakening, I knew exactly what my macros should be. I knew what my resting metabolic rate was. I knew how to efficiently train my body so I could be really super fit. I would count every macro. I was very meticulous about my workouts, right? So very structured, very rigid, no room for breathing. Then I went to this other side where it was like working out. What am I going to do? It's too structured. Like, I don't want to have to do something every single day. I don't want to have a body like that. Oh my God, the work that I have to do to finally come back to the middle, to see working out and eating healthy as a way of honoring my vessel, which is a temple in which I get to embody God, right? Because we are a spark, a God spark. And to think to myself, if I am part of God, God is part of me. Why am I going to fill my body with all this toxic stuff? Why am I just going to sit on the couch and do nothing all day when I could be honoring it by nourishing it with food, nourishing it with things that are filling my soul, whether it's things that I read or listen to, right? And taking walks outside to connect with nature, to connect with myself. So don't get too caught up if you're over here and then all of a sudden you go over here, because eventually you'll come back to the middle. You'll find what really aligns with you. And this part of the pendulum swinging is part of the journey, right? It's part of the process because it is protective. It's part of this part of you that goes into this protective mode. I need to protect myself. I need to protect my peace. I need to, like walk away from things that are no longer healthy, no longer serving me. So for the example with me working out, that structure of like having like 2 hours a day, I do this and this and this, that doesn't feel nourishing to my feminine. It doesn't at all. My feminine is like, okay, what does my body feel like it needs today? Okay, I need to go for a walk. I need to do some yoga. I need to do some Pilates. Or my masculine inside of me might be like, hey, I need to lift some weights today. I listen to what my body needs. I don't push it. It's not a rigid program. I have a layout of what it is that I do. So, for example, Mondays is lower body with some walking. Tuesdays is Pilates. Wednesday is yoga and some walking. Thursday is today. When I'm creating this video, I have upper body with some walking, right? Friday is Pilates. Saturday and Sunday are rest days where I'm just doing some walking. Maybe I do like some red light therapy, a vibrational plate, or something like that that recharges my body. But sometimes too, like if I need to recharge on a Wednesday, I'm going to recharge on a Wednesday because my body is telling me what it needs. Not my mind, but my body. And that's the big thing when you start listening to that part of you that says, this is what I need coming from the body, you will never go wrong. So let's talk about some boundaries, for example, for a little while, because this is what this part of the journey is really about, is initiation to our boundaries. And if you were to be really honest with yourself, most of you don't have any boundaries, right? Because boundaries to us seem really rigid, seem really structured and suffocating. And we've been conditioned to believe as feminines that we need to be available for others. We need to put others first. Many of us are people pleasers. Many of us will abandon ourselves in many ways. And we will go against what it is that we truly feel is right for us and override that in the name of love, in the name of abundance. But there comes a point in your journey where your soul says, not anymore. And a lot of times what I've witnessed is people will be like, okay, I need to start setting boundaries with my twin flame. And usually those boundaries come from fear, they come from control, they come from manipulation, right? Because you're trying to protect yourself from getting hurt. So you're going to be like, I'm not tolerating this behavior, or nope, I'm not going to have you in my life if you're this way, which is fine. Sometimes you have to have that boundary, but you're doing this from a place of you're doing something wrong. I want to make sure that I can control your behavior so I know how to feel safe. I know what to expect. I know how to control the situation. Where boundaries that are built from love, from your self-authority, it means that you're no longer willing to participate in something. You are no longer available for that because you love yourself so much that you're not willing to allow that to happen in your life. And sometimes walking away from something is one of the best things that you can do, even if it is your twin flame journey. Walking away from them and be like, I'm not willing to participate in that anymore. And I'm not saying that like you can ever walk away from this path, because I don't think you can, because I believe that when something is destined for you in this lifetime, that God and the universe will conspire to do whatever it is that they can do to make sure that you stay on path, even if you go off path, to get back on your path. And they will continue to send you signs and signals that, hey, don't forget about this person. Hey, don't forget you're on this path, right? Because this journey is more than just about a love story. It's about the purpose that we have in this lifetime and the shifting of the consciousness, the shifting of the planet. So let's talk about what integrated boundaries actually are. When you integrate healthy boundaries, they're calm. They allow your body to feel safe. They're non-reactive and they're grounded. And most importantly, you never over-explain. The internal shift that many of you have to go from is thinking, am I being too harsh? When you set a boundary with somebody, you might start thinking, am I being too harsh? And that shift, when you start honoring yourself and having healthy boundaries, God says, does this honor my body? Does it honor me? Because boundaries are without a hardness in your energy field, within your body. They're without tension, Boundaries are created with love, but also meaning without access, meaning you're not allowing somebody to access you in the way that they did before. They're not about performing, they're not about proving, and they're not about pleasing somebody else other than you right now. And they're made with compassion, not with erasing yourself, erasing your integrity, erasing you from the equation. So a lot of times, I'm trying to think of an example. When it came to boundaries, like there were certain behaviors that my twin flame would do that I would be like, I no longer am going to tolerate this. And I would try to fix him. Oh, so for example, like when we lived in Mexico, this was like a few years ago, he would say, okay, I'm gonna like come over for lunch or something. And then he wouldn't even show up. He wouldn't show up, he wouldn't call me, he wouldn't text me, nothing. And I was trying to change the behavior. And I would try to change the behavior, be like, can't you just text me or call me and be like, hey, I can't make it today. I'm like, I'm going to be okay with it. And then I started thinking about what would I do in that situation. I would be like, well, the reason why I wouldn't want to call or text is because I didn't want to disappoint them or hurt their feelings or whatever. But then I thought to myself, no, you're just making excuses from him, because the reality was he wasn't honoring my time. He wasn't honoring me. And I started realizing, oh, guess who's not honoring herself? Guess who's not honoring her time? Me. But then I realized, no, I was no longer going to tolerate that behavior. So when he would want to meet for lunch, Sometimes I'd be like, I can meet for lunch on this day, or no, I'm not available, type of thing. And so you have to start looking at where is it that you need to start setting healthy boundaries with yourself, and what kind of behaviors from your twin flame you're no longer willing to tolerate. Because remember, feminines, we teach the masculine how to treat us through our boundaries, through what it is that we're willing to accept and willing to tolerate. And eventually I was just like, I don't have time for this stuff. If you can't make a commitment to me and honor my time, then no, I'm not available for that anymore. And I stopped becoming available all the time. I stopped dropping what it is that I was doing to make time for him. And I started making myself a priority. And oftentimes, when you start creating these boundaries with yourself first of what you're no longer willing to tolerate, and by doing that, you then have to communicate to certain people things like, no, I, I'm not available, or no, I don't want to. And no, by the way, is a complete answer. When you enter into this phase, when you start setting your boundaries with yourself, with your twin flame, with others in your life, it can feel kind of lonely. Because honestly, it's lonely because fewer people are willing to meet you there. And those people that were taking advantage of you by not having boundaries, those are the people that are going to be upset the most. Because they no longer have access to you. And they're losing something that they needed because you were so willing to give up your time, give up your energy. And so it does get to be lonely. But for those of you that have a fear of being alone, this is a really critical, important part of your journey because many of you are so afraid to be alone. And let's talk about boundaries that trigger others on the twin flame path. Because within our connection, within ourselves, you know, we've been conditioned, you know, as feminines to be weak, to be available, to put others before our needs, to please others, right? And the reality is that's not how we're meant to navigate life. And a lot of these things have been trauma responses. These are things that we've been conditioned to believe. And these are things that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation of other women in your lineage. Because there comes a point where availability doesn't feel safe anymore. To be open and available for everyone doesn't feel safe. Some of us have been conditioned to believe that flexibility, being flexible, being available, those types of things equals kindness. But it's not. And that access to you whenever they want equals love. And that's not love. And when you start setting these calm boundaries with yourself and within your connection, it can feel threatening, right? Because for some of you, your nervous system is so wired for chaos, so wired for the ups and downs, and the calm and the peace can feel more threatening than the actual ups and downs. Because boundaries that are calm, boundaries that are grounded and rooted, they don't engage in survival patterns anymore. And everything that you've built up in your life around survival will eventually begin to crumble. And survival meaning like control, the fear, the manipulation, the scarcity, the lack, right? That's what I'm talking about, survival. And many of you are still in survival within your nervous system and within your root chakra. And when you start setting these boundaries, people might feel like you're being misunderstood. It doesn't mean that you're wrong, because not everybody is meant to understand you. Nobody needs to know and understand exactly why it is that you are doing this. Because this is a period in your journey when you start setting your boundaries where you're letting go of the need for others to understand you. And the fact that you're on the twin flame journey, most people aren't going to understand you anyways. And you continue to create situations where you're trying to get people to understand you. Because you're wanting to be relatable, you're wanting to feel connection. And the truth of the reality is the only person that needs to understand you is you. And when you start understanding yourself, others are no longer misunderstanding you. Because when you have a calm nervous system, you're no longer living from survival, and you are integrating healthy boundaries with yourself and others within your reality. You no longer mistaken pressure for urgency. I mean, not urgency, pressure in something, pressure in life, pressure in the connection for devotion. It's not devotion. And you no longer mistaken urgency for intimacy. You no longer mistaken persistence for love. Because your twin flame doesn't come back to teach you just about your attachment style. Your twin flame is here to reveal where you have been self-betraying, where your self-betrayal is hidden inside of love. Because when you sacredly detach, you're learning to say no to things without shutting down your heart, without shutting down your body. And you're learning to stay present without disappearing. And most of us, our detachment comes from a place of a wound, right? This place of removing ourselves so we don't get hurt. Removing ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, energetically, and spiritually from something, right? But that's not what sacred detachment is about. It's about learning to say no without closing your heart, and learning to be present within the connection still without disappearing from the connection and without disappearing from yourself. Because true union in yourself and with your twin flame is not boundaryless. It has boundaries because each individual are two sovereign beings, two sovereign nervous systems who are choosing the connection. And right now, for many of you, only one of you is choosing the connection. And it's okay not to choose a connection. Like, I think we need to normalize it's okay not to choose a connection right now and to focus on yourself. It's not selfish. Actually, that is selfish. That's selfish in a good way, right? Like, you are finally putting yourself first. Because the twin flame journey is about love, isn't about loving harder. It's not about loving and abandoning yourself. It's not about being available for them 100%. It's about coming back home to you and to rising up into the feminine that you are meant to be in this lifetime. And you have this other person who gets to be your mirror, one of your greatest teachers that walks the planet with you. And here's the thing that many of you need to hear but don't really want to hear, is you don't have to figure this out alone. You don't have to navigate this journey by yourself. You can begin by downloading my free guide. The link will be down in my description box. For those of you that are newer on the journey or perhaps struggling and a little bit confused, I talk about the feminine's role, the masculine's role. I talk about the 5 truths about the feminine's journey. I give you some tools in there to help you navigate this. Or you can subscribe and receive my weekly email where I put transmissions in there, embodiment practices, reflection to help you on your path. Or if you're wanting to go deeper into this work, then to book a one-on-one session. Maybe there's a pattern that you and your twin keep playing out over and over and you can't get to the root of it. Or maybe you need to get in tune more with your intuition, whatever that might be. You can book a guided coaching session, or you can book a energy healing session. And all the details for that is in the link in my bio. Because feminines, the twin flame journey goes beyond unconditional love. It goes beyond devotion. It goes beyond enduring whatever this connection brings. Because the reality is that this path is an initiation to something deeper, to your boundaries, to your self-trust, to being an energetic sovereign being. In your twin flame journey is just one way that we get initiated. When you step into your purpose and you start becoming your own boss, that's another level of initiation. Union with your twin flame is another level of initiation. Because a journey for us feminines isn't about loving without boundaries or edges. It's not about loving harder, understanding more, or staying open long enough, thinking that he's eventually going to choose you. Because feminines, he doesn't choose you until you choose you. And so I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment down below what really resonated with you. What is it that you needed to hear? That was like a light bulb moment, an aha moment that said, this is what I needed. And because I love to read about those things. And so my friends, I'm sending you all so much love and light. And so honored to be on this path with each and every one of you. A path that we chose that wasn't easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy, right? But it's a path that not only is going to change your life, but every single life that you touch. And I'll see you in the next video.